Next example, flipping houses. Now, by the time I made this goal or business plan, we had already been doing real estate for a few years and had already flipped multiple houses. So while my first goal of making $1 million in 1 year may have been a little premature, this one was not. Now, I don't remember what came first, the goal of making the $1 million or the goal of flipping 100 houses. But essentially, the goal became make $1 million net profit by flipping 100 houses in the next 12 months. So in this example, some of the how was actually even in the first sentence. How are we going to make $1 million flipping houses? By flipping 100 houses. How did we come up with 100? Well, 100 just sounds like a cool number, but we also knew that on average, we made about $20,000 profit after paying our money partner. The average profit to us was about $10,000. Hence our $1 million goal. From there, we broke this goal down into how it could happen. How many offers did we need to make to get X amount of houses accepted? How many houses did we need to analyze in order to bid on X amount of houses, which on average we should buy X percentage? How many contractors or general contractors did we need to manage these jobs? How much capital would it take? Who would manage them? How many agents would we need, etc.? Now, the details of the systems weren't necessarily a part of the plan, but they are what came from having the plan, from taking action on the plan. And this time, we reached our goal. We followed a very similar pattern of creating these kinds of plans for both our real estate investing education business, our software business, our money lending business, and now Millionaire University. With Millionaire University, as with some of these other businesses, I have created plans all the way from billion-dollar business valuation plans to $1 million a year net profit plans. Let's just say our plans these days for an active business would never go below $1 million net profit per year. So when coming up with your plan, feel free to do multiple iterations. Feel free to change things up. Feel free to test things out. What if this? What if that? Walt Disney was famous for what was called the Disney room. In the Disney room, he could dream big, think big. Anything was allowed. No idea was too big or too crazy. Then he would go into another room where they would talk about the reality of what they could actually implement and do more immediate, leaving other plans for potentially future. But the thing is, they did and implemented so many things that they never would have thought, never would have imagined that could have actually come to fruition if it wasn't for the Disney room. What if? Why not? Could we? How could we? How can we get this done? How can we make this happen? The truth is there are multiple billion-dollar plans that are in my head that have yet to be implemented, and most of which will most likely never see the light of day. And I'm okay with that. We'll talk about this more in our next module when we talk about being financially free and living the life you love. But we all do what we do for a reason. And I don't know about you, but my goal in life is not just to work every hour of every waking day. I love what I do when I do it in the right balance, while I'm also focusing on other things in life that bring me joy and fulfillment, that are fun, that are exciting, taking care of my health, spending time with my family, creating memories. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about that more in Module 10. Since Millionaire University is the business that is currently more top of mind, that has happened in more recent years, I'll give a couple examples that will help you see that your business plan is constantly evolving. When we started Millionaire University, it may have looked something like make X amount of dollars in X amount of time by teaching people how to start and grow their own successful business. From there, the how of that has grown and evolved and continues to evolve with time. As we took action, we got more information. We had a better understanding of where we wanted to focus. This was based both on external and internal factors, both related to the business and our personal lives and our personal situation, how we felt about different things, what was going on with our kids, what people or partners did we find in our life that had certain skills or abilities that fit well with what we were trying to accomplish. What kinds of marketing or promotion did we try out that didn't go well or did go well? So right now, having just completed about 2 years since we started Millionaire University, now going into our 3rd year, our business plan looks something like this. Make $1 million in the next 12 months through our business education platform, Millionaire University. Average $100,000 per month after marketing costs, which would leave $200,000 to cover any overhead or other expenses. I would then break that down into the amount of money that we make on average per episode we put out prior to additional promotions. So for example, we currently make about $800 per podcast we put out from ad revenue prior to any additional promoting of the podcast. And on average, it costs around $150 to produce each episode, leaving right around $600 profit per episode produced. Knowing and understanding these simple numbers allows me to ask questions like, what if we went from doing 3 episodes per week to doing a daily show? So I run some simple math and I multiply 365 for 365 days in the year times 600, which is the profit that we are currently making per episode. And it comes to $219,000 based off of our current numbers. I'm then able to ask questions like, well, what if we did 2 episodes per day at $600 profit per episode, which comes to $438,000 profit. You then start to ask questions like, well, what if we did 3 episodes per day at $600 profit, which comes to $657,000. Then just for fun, you say, what if we did 6 episodes per day at $600 profit per episode? And that comes to $1.3 million in profit for the year. Now, just to be clear, these are hypotheticals based on information that I currently have based on actions that we've taken and or information that I have learned or feel like I've learned from other people or seen from other people. I mean, in this case, it's based on actual numbers that we currently have based on data that we have from action that we've taken. But in the beginning, we were running similar numbers based on information that we thought might be the case based on what we heard someone else say or research that we did, or just a hypothesis that we had on what we thought might be possible. But as you can see, a business plan that we would come up with today is going to be very different than one that we came up with 2 years ago. Similar in nature, similar in intent of making money while helping other people grow their business, but very different in the specifics of how we are currently going about doing that. Now, will we continue to get the same downloads and same sponsorship fill rates and make the same profit per episode if we're doing 6 episodes per day versus 3 episodes per week or a daily episode? Those are the unknowns, and those are the things that we need to test for. So that's what we're currently doing. We recently went to 5 episodes per week, and in a few weeks, we're going to go to a daily episode, 7 days per week. And then after that, we'll start testing where on some days we do 2 episodes per day and see the results we get. Then I also want to run this idea, this theory, this potential plan through our 3-question filter. Does it help people? Does it make money, which we've already covered? And are we having fun doing it? AKA, even if I was guaranteed to make $600 per episode, I wouldn't go to doing 6 episodes a day because I would be miserable. All we would be doing is churning content. Having that been said, the way that we've set up the podcast where we have a team, we have great hosts helping do the interviews, we have an assistant. Now, this all took time to build up, to build these relationships, to create those systems and processes that we currently have, to find the right editors, to teach them what we need them to do in the editing of these episodes. This is the only reason that we can even consider going to 1 or 2 or maybe 3 episodes per day. So these are all things that you want to keep in mind. Everything at the beginning starts out as a hypothesis, and then you test it out and you try it and you see if it works and you adapt and adjust. Okay, but so back to our current plan for this year. The current plan is to try to get to the point where we are doing 3 episodes per day. Now, once again, through testing, it is possible that we may not go to 3 per day based on the response that we're getting when we test out 2. So far, 1 per day seems to be working very well. But I just want to point out that there are some unknowns, but that doesn't mean that you don't think about it, that you don't test it out, that you don't say, what if, what could happen? So 3 per day, that would be $657,000 over 1 year. Now, because it is going to take several months to ramp up to possibly doing this, assuming that our tests go well, I would probably put the estimated net profit on these episodes closer to about $500,000. So then I ask myself, okay, if our goal is get to $1 million net profit for the year, where does the other $500,000 come from? Well, we know that we are currently making about $75 for every 1,000 listens that we have. And on average, it's costing us about $50 for every 1,000 listens that we get through marketing, which leaves us with about a $25 average profit per 1,000 downloads after promotional expenses. Which means at scale, at these same numbers, if we invest $1 million this year in promoting the Millionaire University podcast, that investment would bring in $1.5 million in revenue or $500,000 in profit. So in short, essentially, our $1 million plan for 2025 for Millionaire University is to produce and publish 1,000 podcast episodes at an average of $600 for a grand total of a $600,000 profit, and to profitably invest $1 million in growth while netting $500,000 off of that growth. Now, there are a lot of unknowns in this hypothetical scenario, in this hypothesis, in this equation. So if you're sitting out there saying, yeah, but what about this? What about this? What about this? You're right. Absolutely. There are all kinds of things that could happen. And the numbers that we came up with are based on us keeping our similar numbers or improving our numbers. So for example, if our average downloads per episode goes down, then everything goes down. But the opposite could also be true. And the truth is that we could double the amount of downloads that we get per episode by the end of the year, thus doubling all the numbers that I'm currently talking about, assuming everything else stays the same. Another number that could also go down is the amount of money we make per 1,000 downloads that we get, which I don't know about you, but I'm happy to spend $1 million to make 1.5, but I do not want to spend $1 million to make 500,000. But the opposite could also be true where we get to the point where we're making $100 per 1,000 listens. So you might be saying, well, why don't you just spend 5 million and make 7.5 million? Or why don't you do 50 episodes per day? That's the whole point of a business, is you need to scale responsibly. And not all the numbers are always the same at scale. There are variables. There's also infrastructure that you need to put into place. So the cool thing about taking action in a business is at first it is based on all hypotheticals, but not just hypotheticals, because you can see what other people are doing. You can learn from other people. You can look at other industries and figure out how to apply those exact same things to your industry or a different industry. But now we know these numbers that we're looking at. There are 3 to 5 numbers that we are constantly analyzing and constantly trying to improve. How do we get more downloads? How do we make more money per download? How do we get more exposure at a lower cost or less time? How do we keep the quality as high as possible while keeping production costs as low as possible? and then constantly keeping an eye on these numbers. For example, I mentioned this previously, but our fill rates from December to January in our ad spots saw a huge drop. Now, I knew this would happen to a degree because I saw November and October skyrocket, but the beginning of January actually went lower than where they were previously prior to the holidays. And I ain't gonna lie, I was a little concerned at first, but now we're back to normal numbers. And last year was our first year in doing podcast sponsorship. So this wasn't something that I was totally aware of, but now we know, now we're prepared. Now we know come the holidays this year, we'll be spending 3 to 4 times the budget that we spent at the end of 2024. Okay, so I'm getting a little excited, a little bit off track. What can I say? I love geeking out about this stuff. I just want you to be able to see, hear, feel, understand how exciting this is and how simple it can be. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is easy. Nothing we have done over the past 20 years, any business we started has not been easy. But you do not need to overcomplicate it. I don't care where you are in your business. You can literally write a business plan in about 5 minutes. Now, working out some of the more detailed mathematic numbers that I'm talking about, running through those numbers, testing different numbers out, seeing what fits, what goes here, what goes there. Yes, that's going to take some more time, but that's an evolving thing. I mean, I run through this practice probably on a weekly basis, or sometimes it's like 1 month, I'll do it a few times, run some different hypothetical scenarios, and then some of it we run with, some we don't. Constantly changing, constantly adapting. In fact, if you've heard me talk about my numbers in the past, they're probably different right now because different variables are always changing. We're constantly moving with that cheese, constantly adapting the targets and goals that we're trying to hit. And there are many variables that could come up that could change things up. We might go to 3 episodes per day and realize that our numbers cut in half. So then we could do one of 2 things. We can either double down and just keep doing more of those and just realize, okay, the profit per episode is a little bit less. Or we might say, how do we get our downloads higher? Or we might say, you know what, let's shift and let's do a community or something totally different. Not totally different, like we would keep doing what we're doing, but we would adapt, we would adjust. And that's what a business is. But everything that we have ever done has just started with an idea, a what if, or we heard of someone else doing this thing that was working for them. It's all a numbers game. And then once you have your plan, it's as simple as breaking it down into different projects, different to-dos, KPIs, putting it in your calendar, which Tara and I shared our entire calendaring and organizational system to get crap done in episode 41. If you haven't listened to that, it's a must listen. And then just sticking with it day in and day out, consistent and persistent. I'm not talking about working like a madman or a mad woman, not talking about working till your eyes bleed, not talking about working 80-hour weeks and hating your life, never going on vacation, never seeing your kids. No, I'm talking about putting just as much, if not less, into your business, into your money-making machine as you would into a regular job. But instead, you are building something that will give back to you for the rest of your life. And we'll talk more about living an amazing life next week in Module 10, our last module. But for now, create your simple 1-page plan. Remember, it's an evolving, constantly changing, simple plan that you want to be executing on the daily, execute on a regular basis, and then recreating, reshaping, reforming, adapting and adjusting, but constantly moving until you've created something that is working for you day in and day out, regardless of what you're doing, and will allow you to put more into it or do whatever the heck you want. Not saying it doesn't take maintenance, it does, but the freedom that your money machine will give you is life-changing. So create your business plan, send it to Tara and I. You're all amazing people. You can totally do this. It's not rocket science, but we want to hear from you. Let us know any questions you have at all. And until our next and final module, class dismissed.